بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعزائي طلاب المرحلة الثانية. Today we start the first lecture in the digestive tract. The objectives of this lecture includes recognize the main structure of the GIT tube, study the types of lingual papillae, study the structure of the taste bud, and study the structure of esophagus. The digestive system consists of oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. In addition to the associated glands that includes salivary gland, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. GIT can perform the followings, beginning with the ingestion, which means introduction of food and fluid into oral cavity, followed by mastication, means dividing the solid food into small digestible pieces. Then motility, means muscular movement of materials through the tract. Then secretion of lubricating and protective mucus, digestive enzymes, acidic fluid, alkaline fluid, and bile. And hormonal release for local control of GIT motility and gland secretion. And then chemical digestion of large macromolecules present in food into the smaller molecule, and then absorption of these small molecules and water, and lastly elimination of indigestible and absorbed component of the food to the outside. The gastrointestinal tract or alimentary canal is a hollow tube with a lumen of variable diameter and a wall made up of 4 main layers. The first layer is mucosa, which is subdivided into lining epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. Second layer, submucosa, that contains autonomic ganglion named as Meissner's or submucosal plexus, and muscularis propria, which is subdivided into the inner circular, outer longitudinal, with Orbach plexus in between, and the outermost layer is Serosa or Adventitia. This picture showing the 4 layers of GIT. The first layer is mucosa, which is subdivided into lining epithelium. Each segment in the GIT tract has its own characteristic lining epithelium. Below it, we can see lamina propria, composed of the thin, loose layer of connective tissue containing small blood vessels, nerves, lymphocytes, either randomly distributed or in form of lymph node. Below it, we can see a thin band of smooth muscle fiber named as muscularis mucosa, that dividing the mucosa from the submucosa. The second layer is submucosa, which is composed of the dense layer of connective tissue containing larger blood vessels, nerves, autonomic ganglion named as Meissner's or submucosal plexus, and the submucosa along the GIT is devoid from glands, except 2 regions in the GIT has glands in their submucosa. These includes the esophagus and the duodenum. And these submucosal glands has its own ducts that passing through the whole length of the mucosa to open into the lumen of the tract. The third layer is muscularis externa, which is subdivided into inner circular, outer longitudinal with Orbach plexus in between. And then the fourth layer is the serosa, composed of the thin layer of connective tissue covered by mesothelium. This slide showing the differentiation between the Adventitia and Serosa. Adventitia means it is a layer of loose connective tissue, lack mesothelium, seen in segment not enveloped by peritoneum as esophagus, as the anus, pharynx, and Adventitia connecting these segments to the surrounding structure, as seen in this slide, the esophagus, in which their outer Adventitia layer connecting it to the surrounding neighboring structure as trachea. While serosa means it is a thin layer of loose connective tissue, mean it is a layer of Adventitia covered by mesothelium, which is thin squamous epithelium, and seen in GIT segments passed in the abdominal cavity and enveloped by peritoneum. So in these segments, the outer layer is covered by thin line of squamous epithelium named as mesothelium. So the main point of differentiation is a presence or absence of mesothelium. If it is present, it means it is Serosa. If it is absent, it means it is Adventitia. Other important structure seen in the mucosa of digestive tract is what is named as MALT. MALT means mucosal associated lymphatic tissue, which is part of defense system that produce immunoglobulin A antibody against the viral and bacterial pathogen. And this structure is seen in system that has direct contact with the external environment as digestive tract, respiratory tract, genitourinary system. This slide showing the lamina propria containing diffusely arrangement of the lymphocyte is named as diffuse lymphatic tissue, while in this slide the lymphocyte will be arranged in form of lymphatic nodules. Sometimes these lymphatic nodules may pass through the muscularis mucosa and reach to the submucosa. The first structure of the digestive tract is the oral cavity that extends from the lips to the pharyngeal isthmus, which can be divided into the vestibule. Vestibule, it is the outer part, which lies between the lips and cheeks externally and gums and teeth internally. The oral cavity proper, it lies between the gums and teeth and the oropharyngeal isthmus. The oral mucosa varies from the side to side within the oral cavity, but everywhere the epithelium is a protective stratified squamous epithelium. This epithelium is partially keratinized on the gums, hard palate, and on the filiform papillae of the tongue in order to resist the damage from the abrasion. This slide showing the lining epithelium is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, which is the main lining epithelium that line all the mucosa of the oral cavity, except in certain region it's become keratinized, as we said, on gums, hard palate, and filiform papillae in order to resist the damage from the abrasion. Below this lining epithelium, we can see lamina propria. Lamina propria is a dense irregular connective tissue with the dermal papillae. These are dermal papillae. And these dermal papillae act to reduce the mobility of the overlying epithelium and also bring the blood capillaries and nerves here, bring them in order to supply the overlying epithelium. And below the lamina propria, there is no muscularis mucosa. And this means that the lamina propria, it lies directly over the submucosa. First item in the oral cavity is lip. Lip means each lip composed of well-developed core of striated muscle, orbicularis oris. This is the orbicularis oris muscle that form the skeleton of the lip, which are embedded or which is embedded into the fibroelastic connective tissue. And this section taken from the lower lips. As we said, from inside we can see the mucous membrane or the oral surface. From outside we can see the cutaneous surface made up by skin. This region is the transitional zone between them. It is named as red margin. If we take these parts of the lower lips and watching it under the high power of microscope, we can see this picture. The stratified squamous epithelium non-keratinized, below it lamina propria with dermal papillae, and then submucosa containing glands. These glands is minor salivary glands and named as labial gland. So, the lip has three different covered surfaces. Number one, the internal mucous surface, which is covered by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Then the red margin, transitional zone of each lip, which is covered by thin keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, and it is transition between the oral mucosa and the skin. It lacks the salivary and the sweaty gland. Here it has no salivary or sweaty gland, and so it kept moist by saliva by liking them with the tip of the tongue. The underlying connective tissue here is very rich in both sensory innervation and capillaries, which give them the pink color to this region. The outer surface or cutaneous surface is covered by skin, which is keratinized stratified squamous epithelium with skin appendages can be seen here. That includes hair follicle, sebaceous, and sweat gland. So each lip have three surfaces: internal surface, external surface, and this is the internal surface, this external surface, and this is the red margin or transitional zone. Other items present inside the oral cavity is the tongue. Tongue is highly muscular organ composed of striated skeletal muscle that function is chewing, swallowing, and speech. The tongue has two surfaces, dorsal surface and ventral. The dorsal surface will be divided into the anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3 by V-shaped line. And this surface is rough due to it has a many projection named as lingual papillae, while the ventral surface is smooth as it devoid these papillae. Structure of the tongue composed of the following layers: mucosa, submucosa, and the muscle layer. The mucosa consists of lining epithelium and lamina propria. The lining epithelium is stratified squamous epithelium resting on the basal lamina. Below it we can see the lamina propria with numerous dermal papillae. The mucosa on the dorsal surface of the tongue, it has many projections named as lingual papillae, while in the ventral surface of the tongue, the mucosa is a smooth outline. Below the mucosa, we can see the submucosa, which has numerous salivary glands named as the lingual glands with seromucous secretion. The main components in the structure of the tongue is the skeletal muscle, which is run in all directions. Some are longitudinal, other are vertical, and other are transverse. And this arrangement of the muscle in all directions giving the tongue high grade of mobility. Between these muscle fibers, we can see connective tissue, collagen fibers, which run in continuity with the collagen fibers present in the lamina propria, and this give the answer for why it is difficult to separate the lining epithelium or separating the mucosa from the underlying muscle. Number 1, filiform papillae. They provide a rough surface that facilitates the movement of the food during chewing. They are characterized by: number 1, they are the most numerous type of the papillae that distributed over the dorsal surface of the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. They have an elongated conical shaped end which directed backward in order to push the bolus of the food backward. They are keratinized, which is the only type of papillae that covered by keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, and they have no taste bud, so its main function is mechanical. 2, fungiform papillae. This is the fungiform papillae, and in this slide, this is the fungiform papillae. They are the less numerous, distributed among the filiform papillae on the dorsal surface of the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. They are covered by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. They are mushroom. Mushroom mean the superior surface is wider than its base. Some of them have few apical taste buds on their superior surface. The third type of papillae is foliate papillae, which consists of several pararidges and furrows. Each ridge will be followed by a furrow, then other ridge and other furrow. ridge معناتها نتوء and furrow معناتها خدود or دهليز or sulcus. They are covered by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, has taste bud on their lateral side, present on the dorsolateral side of the tongue, well developed in the animals, but rudimentary in humans, mainly in older individuals, but can be seen in children. The duct of von Ebner's gland will be open into the bottoms of these furrows. Von Ebner's gland, it is a pure serous glands. They are present in the submucosa of the tongue, secrete serous secretion of the saliva that contain digestive enzymes. For circumfallate papillae, they are the largest type of papillae that's surrounded by the circular furrows. They are dome-shaped papillae, and it's covered by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. They are about 8 to 12 papillae, normally arranged in single row just in front of the terminal sulcus. They have rich taste buds, which approximately 250 taste buds are present on the lateral side of each circumvallate papillae. The ducts of von Ebner's gland, which are Serosa gland, open into the bottom of this groove. This provides a continuous washing of these taste buds. Taste buds are the onion-shaped structure distributed into the stratified epithelium of the tongue, palate, pharynx. هذا معناته إنه البراعم الذوقية موجودة في جميع lining epithelium of the mouth, بالcheeks, بالpalate, بالtongue. In the tongue it is reside. معناتها reside إنه هي بالtongue راح تقع وين؟ تقع within the lingual papillae اللي حكينا عنه الأربعة. Mainly where? Mainly in the circumvallate papillae, in the lateral side of circumvallate papillae, and others may be present on the apical surface of fungiform or superior surface of it, and in the lateral side of the foliate papillae. This is the histological appearance of the taste bud, and this is the high power. This picture showing the anatomical surface of the tongue and the anatomical distribution of these lingual papillae and with the histological finding of the taste bud. The tongue superior surface was dividing by the V-shaped line. This is the V-shaped line that's directed posteriorly into the anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3. The posterior 1/3 will be occupied by the lingual tonsil. The anterior 2/3 showing rough appearance or irregularity, and this is due to the presence of the lingual papillae. The most numerous one is filiform papillae, which is pointed, shape end, tall, pointed end. The direction of this pointed end is directed posteriorly. It is covered by the keratinized stratified epithelium, which is the only papillae covered by keratin. It has no taste bud. Among them, we can see a small red spot. This is the red spot, and this means it is a fungiform papillae. Fungiform, it's mushroom shape. It covered by non-keratinized, distributed among the filiform, and it has a few taste buds in their apical surface. The third papillae is foliate papillae, present on the dorsolateral side. As we said, it is mainly developed in the animals and in the young children, but it is rudimentary in the older. They consist of regular parallel ridges and furrows. On the lateral side of it, has taste bud and it's covered by non-keratinized epithelium. The last one and the largest one is the circumvallate papillae. This is the circumvallate, which is arranged in single line in front of the sulcus terminalis. It is dome shape surrounded by the circular furrows. On the lateral side of these papillae, we have a numerous taste bud. At the bottom of this sulcus, we can see the duct of Serosa glands named as von Ebner's gland, and this is the site of the taste bud and the arrangement of the cells present in it. This slide showing the lateral side of the foliate papillae and the histological appearance of the taste bud. The structure of the taste bud. Each taste bud has 50 to 100 cells. There are 3 cell types. Number 1, taste cell. Number 2, supporting. And number 3, stem cell. This is the taste cell, or named as gustatory or sensory cell, that pair microvilli in their apical surface which project through the taste bore, الفتحة اللي من خلالها تطلع هاي الميكروفيلاي تطلع على التنج سيرفيس حتى تستقبل الفود بارتيكل. Supporting cell, this is the supporting cell present between the taste cell and the stem cell, which lies at the base of the taste. They are rounded cells with rounded nuclei and has high degree of mitosis in order to replace the other cell types. The sensory cell, this is the sensory cell or taste cell or gustatory cell. It has light oval nucleus with light cytoplasm and the microvilli which are present on their apical surface that project through the taste bore. The other cell is supporting cell, which has dark elongated nucleus and dark cytoplasm present between the taste cell supporting them. Their lifespan is very short. It's about 10 to 14 days, which is replaced by the stem cell. The base of test bud is rest on the basal lamina. This is the basal lamina, which is penetrated by the nerve fiber ending that end into the sensory cell. As food mixed with the saliva is come in contact with the microvilli through the test pore. And this stimulation of these microvilli cause depolarization of the test receptor or test cells, which then stimulating the nerve fiber ending, and these nerve fiber ending sending this information to the brain for processing. Test buds can detect 5 types of taste sensation, which are sweet sensation, salty sensation, and sweet sensation, salty sensation, sour, bitter, and umami. This previously they can dividing the tongue or sectioning the tongue into region. Each region is responsible for receiving certain type of taste sensation. For example, the anterior part of the tongue responsible for the sweet taste, the anterior lateral responsible for the salty, the posterior lateral responsible for the sour, and posteriorly is for the bitter, and so on. Later on, they found this tongue map is wrong because they found most of the taste bud response to the old stimulation to the varying extent. يعني معناته انه each taste bud كل برعم ذوقي ممكن ان يتحسس لجميع انواع التيست سنسيشن because لانه داخل هذه البرعم الذوقي يوجد مجموعة خلايا عصبية، ولكن كل خلية متحسسة لنوع معين من الذوق. As you seen here, this is the taste bud. Inside it there are many taste cells receptor. Each one is responsible for the single type of taste sensation. One receptor for the sweet, other for the salty, other for the sour, and so on. The second structure of the digestive tract is esophagus. Esophagus means a muscular tube about 25 centimeter long in adults, which transport the swallowed material from the pharynx to the stomach, and it has 4 layers. This part of the esophagus, after it penetrates the diaphragm, it is the intraperitoneal section or parts of the esophagus. We can see the 4 layers. First the mucosa, then submucosa, then muscular layer, and the outer layer is serosa. Now the histological structure of the esophagus. The esophagus is part of the GIT, and as we said previously in the first slides, the GIT consists of 4 layers. So esophagus, it has mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and outer layer serosa or adventitia. And this mucosa subdivided into the lining epithelium, and here in the esophagus it is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Below it lamina propria consists of collagen fiber, fibroblast, and scattered lymphocyte, eosinophil, mast cell, and plasma cell. Lining lamina propria is empty from gland. بالesophagus ما بي gland except only on the lower esophagus near the cardiac region of stomach, where it contains a glands named as esophageal cardiac glands. The third item of a mucosa is muscularis mucosa, which is thin band of smooth muscle that differentiated the mucosa from the submucosa. The second layer is submucosa that composed of the dense connective tissue. This is the submucosa, consisting of connective tissue containing esophageal glands, and which is their secretion act to lubricate and protect the mucous membrane of esophagus. The submucosa also has parasympathetic nerve plexus named as submucosal or mesenteric plexus that control the gland secretion and the smooth muscle activity. In this slide, this is the lining epithelium, lamina propria, muscularis mucosa, and this is the submucosa containing mesenteric plexus. This is the mesenteric plexus under the high power. 3. The muscular coat, which consists of an inner circular muscle and the outer longitudinal muscle. In the upper third of esophagus, these muscles are skeletal, which means it is under the voluntary control, while in the lower third of the esophagus, these muscles are smooth, it means under involuntary control, and in the middle part of esophagus, there is a mixture of both types of muscle, so we can see both skeletal and smooth muscle fiber. Myonteric plexus, which is defined as aggregated autonomic neuron into small ganglia that responsible for the control the contraction of the muscular layer that help to mix and drive the luminal content forward, and it is present between the two sublayers of muscular coat. There is a thickening of the inner muscular layer at the cardioesophageal junction, forming what is called the gastroesophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter. This slide showing the lower end of the esophagus and the beginning of the stomach. Here we can see the change of the epithelium from non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium to the simple columnar epithelium with mucus cell. Lamina propria contain few glands named as the cardiac esophageal gland, while here in the stomach, the lamina propria is filled with the cardiac glands. The submucosa of esophagus contain esophageal glands, while in the stomach it is empty. The muscle layer at the lower end of esophagus showing an enlargement of the inner circular layer, which is demarcated by this red line, and this forming what is called the cardiac sphincter, while the muscle of the stomach it show an enlargement because an additional layer will be added to the already present layers and become inner oblique, middle circular, and the outer longitudinal. And the outermost layer, which is serosa, will be continue from the esophagus to the stomach. Adventitia mean is the outer layer of the esophagus, which is composed of the loose connective tissue and that line the outer layer of the esophagus, except the lower 1 to 2 centimeter of the esophagus, which is covered by serosa. In summary, from this lecture we can conclude the following. GIT tube consists of 4 main layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscle layer, and adventitia or serosa. The dorsal surface of the anterior two-thirds of the tongue have irregular projection named as lingual papillae, which are 4 in types: filiform, fungiform, foliate, and the circumfoliate papillae. The taste buds, which are sensory organs that recognize the taste sensation, distributed into the oral cavity and consisting of 3 cell types: sensory, supporting, and the basal cells. And lastly, the esophagus also consisting of 4 layers, with the esophageal glands present in the submucosa help to lubricating the food passing through the esophagus to the stomach. Thank you very much for your listening.